Wow. Another 13-year-old middle school student talking about what happened that day. Pretty incredible. I want to get some perspective right now from juvenile judge and trial attorney and host here on the Law&Crime Network. Judge Ashley Willcott is with us. Judge Ashley Willcott, great to see you.
Hi, Jesse. Great to be here.
Now, Ashley, as we are watching this, you can't help but think, imagine being a 13-year-old or, middle school student and witnessing this. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for each one of these, these students to come forward and speak about this shooting. It's pretty horrific.
It is pretty horrific, and it's traumatizing to them, not only to witness it, but every single time they have to tell the story, Jesse, or testify or talk about it. The science tells us that is more trauma to them. Now, keep in mind, if they're subpoenaed, they have to testify, right? So even if their parent may say, I don't really think this is good for them and the trauma it's causing, they still have to testify. Prosecution's very smart because they are focusing on the witness, Lauren, which is what they should do.
The outpouring of support for Lauren and her family, that became a big factor, I think, in this whole kinds of case. Really, there was such outrage over this, and I'm curious, not just the heinous nature of this crime, but do you think the age played a factor as well? Think about this. Kody Austin Lott, 22 years old. The victim's 13 years old. I'm curious, how do you think that factor played in this case?
Oh, I think you're right, Jesse. I absolutely think that age played a factor. And the other part of it is not only their age, but it's an age of innocence, right? 13. You're supposed to be able to walk down the street and play with your friends and act like kids. That's all they were doing. They were completely innocent victims of this crime.
I'm glad you mentioned victims, because when we come back, we are going to play the testimony of Michaela Smith, the surviving victim of this shooting. We'll be right back. Quite remarkable to have Michaela Smith, the surviving victim, testifying in open court against the man, you see him with the long hair right there, against the man who she says did this. Now, she survived the shooting. Lauren Landavazo did not. But everybody's been listening to these words. We want to continue on with the testimony of Michaela Smith. Again, she did not want to be shown, but really her words carry so much weight. Let's continue on with her testimony.
Near the dumpsters, Kyra, I still didn't know if it was real or not, and I was feeling my blood run down my chest, down my stomach, and Kyra was asking if it was a joke, like she wanted it to be, because she was freaking out, and one of the 7th or 6th graders came up to me, and she was like, no, that's blood, that's real, and that's when I was really starting to look for my friend, and I turned, and all I saw was her legs, and she was laying on the floor, and I was screaming her name, and she wasn't responding. So that's when I got out my phone to call my mom, because I wanted to tell her my friend was hurt. So I was calling her, and it wasn't going through. And then her call kind of overrided mine, so I answered, and I was telling her that Lauren got shot, and she couldn't hear me. And I told her about 2 more times, and she still didn't hear me. And then I said I got shot, and she heard me, and I was hearing her run, and she was telling me not to move, and I was kind of I was scared because my friend, I wanted her to get here quick, and I was walking. I didn't want to go over to her because I thought I would make it worse than she already was. So I kept my distance, and that's when a man jumped over the fence, and he came over to me, and he was telling me to sit down, and 2 nurses came up, and she was tan and she had black hair, and she took the phone for me to talk to my mom, and she went over trying to cover it in the middle.
Did you think you were going to die that day?
I wasn't really worried about my state because I was still walking and like breathing. I was more worried about Lauren because she wasn't responding.
Michaela, do you know Kody Lott?
No, ma'am.
Did Lauren ever mention Kody Lott's name?
No, ma'am.
Did any of your friends mention Kody Lott's name?
No, ma'am.
So no one knew him at that time? Do you ever think about that day?
Yes, ma'am.
How often do you think about that day?
No, sometimes it'll come up when I'm laying on my stomach or I'm doing normal activity because since the bullet is so close to where my bra wire is, like it'll scrape it or whatever, it'll hurt. I have to adjust it, or I have to adjust how I'm laying down. And then kind of memories kind of come up. Or I'll think about it near the anniversary or on her birthday or my birthday.
And so you two were close friends?
Yes, ma'am.
And I know this is going to sound like a silly question, but it's one I have to ask you. Did you feel pain when you were shot that day with that bullet?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the last thing you remember when you seeing Lauren that day?
The last thing I remember, it was just her feet sticking out over the blanket.
And she wore Converse just like you too, didn't she?
Well, as Michaela Smith, the surviving victim, recounts the details of this savage attack, we have to ask, why did this happen? Now, Ashley, why did this happen? We're seeing the back of Kody Lott's head as she's testifying. And remember, he was first declared incompetent to stand trial, correct?
Correct. So that's true. And that says that he was, if you're incompetent to stand trial, you're unable to understand the character and consequences of the proceeding, and you cannot assist in your defense. However, there's a difference between that and insanity. Insanity is when you've had some type of episode at the time of the crime. It's a defense, but you can still stand trial, which is where we reached the point in this case.
Talking about insanity, his motive, or alleged motive here, was that wasn't he upset that he didn't have a girlfriend? Lauren, 13 years old, he's 22, had a boyfriend, and that he was told by the devil to do this? I mean, is that what you got from understanding this case?
So that's what he indicated in the police interrogation. He said things to that effect. Here's the problem with these kinds of cases, Jesse. Part of my job as a judge is to look at prevention and how can we prevent horrific crimes in the future. This is one I don't know the answer. He was not someone that you can say rationally, if we'd done ABC, he never would have committed this crime. Regardless of those reasons he's come up with or said, there's absolutely no reason to open fire on a bunch of 13-year-old kids.
Well, prevention, isn't there a push to make Lauren's law, which would push for tougher penalties for the murders of people under the age of 15? You make it automatically capital murder?
Absolutely, and that's a really good point, Jesse. And the goal is, the prevention piece of that is, listen, if people recognize that's going to be a consequence, then it will deter, punish, but also deter, so they won't commit these crimes in the future. It is necessary so that those who commit these crimes are punished. I'm just not sure it will act as a deterrent, regrettably.
Yeah. Well, we hope it would. We never want to see these kinds of cases. But what we're going to do is, when we come back, we're going to show you that Kody Lott interrogation tape. If you haven't seen it, wait till you see that. And also, one last thing, when we come back after that, we're going to show you the verdict. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're recapping the Kody Lott trial and the heinous attack of two 13-year-old girls. And right now, before our last break, we were talking to you about the motivations, the alleged motivations behind why Kody Lott may have done this. And clearly, we talked about how he might have been influenced by demonic forces. He was upset that he didn't have a girlfriend, that Landavazo had a girlfriend, had a boyfriend, and really this is a strange set of circumstances. This is me talking and trying to understand it. But you know who would be better to listen to? Kody Lott. He provided a recorded police interview that the jury saw and listened to. Take a look.
You coattail 15, and you use offense and defense on it. And it's just like I told him, I got different problems to the size of the bullet I wanted to fire with. So I explained that to me, how much serious it was. Because I had access to a 223 AR. Some folks just throw something in there and just go, you know, when we had the other gang violence during the 1990s, we collect iron. Oh, yeah. But that's a lot different, though. That's survival, man. This was like an assassination. This was like, I told him I was outraged when Darryl Franklin brought him, and I said I was happy about everything he told Darryl Franklin. He said, this senseless act of violence. I said, how is it senseless? There was nothing but sense put into it. I said, that was a sophisticated assassination. It ain't no just senseless, just all out of the blue, an act of, let's just create an act of violence to be violent. So I'm curious about what people are saying about me, too. Well, I was curious, but I'm not curious. I knew, because I was all on Facebook and watching the news. I was constantly going to the KMDX News Channel 3 homepage and watching those videos of rolling out there. I've been paranoid. And the funny thing about, I hate to say it, like I don't. I'm sorry. The funniest thing to me was when, the funny thing to me is when they said, the second shots rang out. I said, this is working in my favor. I mean, some of us is going for the target on their back now. You know, I said, there's people, these two girls died. Some idiot you don't even know is shooting a bird or shooting something. Well, that's just it. We got the bird season started, you know? It was just so funny to watch them on video. The funniest thing to me was seeing those officers rushing. People like running like that. It was just funny because I mean, it would be not funny if there really was fire, I think. Right. But you see them like have no clue. Was just funny to me, you know. Because I don't think that's it, man. You know, shots ring out, you better take cover. You're gone. You better take cover. And that's just. I mean, I know we're trying to do that. You better take cover when shots ring out. Well, that's what I mean. It wouldn't be funny if they were just took cover. They were running like they were just running, shaking. I mean, you have to watch it, you know. I would have to watch it now. I was already watching. I thought it was like, I don't know. I mean, the way I was watching it, like I told them, man, it was all fun and games until they came on there yesterday and said a new description of the vehicle, and I said, I'm scared. You saw it with the truck. Yeah, I'm now such a good guys.
That's the defendant, ladies and gentlemen. Ashley, what do you think of that video?
Listen, here's what bothers me about that video. In spite of people watching it and saying, you know, he was not competent and he said the devil made him do it. Jesse, we heard him describe. He said this was a sophisticated assassination. It was so funny to watch them. Some idiot, they didn't even know they were being shot at. He's laughing about it. He's describing it in such a way that I have no doubt in my mind he knew exactly what he was doing.
And just the idea that he doesn't take this seriously and laughing about the situation. He's being interviewed about the shooting of two 13-year-old girls, killing one. That can't play well for a jury, and I'm not sure how the defense is going to argue against that.
Right. I agree with you. I think the defense, though, is going to say insanity. At the time he committed this crime, look at his behaviors. He was out of his mind. He didn't even understand the import of what he'd done. I would argue the exact opposite, which is what you just said, Jesse. Look at his demeanor. He's laughing about it, his description of it. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he actually thought it was funny, their reaction to them being shot.
Where's his lawyer? Where's his lawyer? How was he allowed to give this interrogation?
Well, I'm sure, I'm assuming, I'm not sure, but given it went to trial, he was probably advised of his right to have an attorney, and he chose to talk to them and speak to them and give this confession, or he hadn't been arrested and just voluntarily said, I'm going to talk to you about what happened. But I'm assuming that legality was done correctly, or else we would not be at the point we are in a trial.
Yeah, and so really, what is the only avenue for the defense to move here? Do they just say, listen, do they say you have to understand what the mental state of this guy is, you can't take him as any other person? I mean, look at him in this video. Do they just play it up and say, look at it yourself?
That's what I would do if I were defense, Jesse. I'd say, listen, there's no way he should be responsible for his actions, because if you watch this video, and it was right after the shooting, he did not know. He was having an episode, a mental deficiency, so he did not know or realize what he was doing at the time he committed the act. Now, I don't buy that, but I think that's the only argument defense can make.
Well, look, he was saying at one point that he was speaking to the devil. Let's see if that actually played out and the jury found him guilty or not guilty. Let's see.
Be seated, please. Ms. Garrett, has your jury reached its verdict?
It has.
I read this to you and ask you if it's the verdict of the jury. Count one, we, the jury, find the defendant Kody Austin Lott guilty of the offense of murder as alleged in the indictment. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Deadly weapon verdict, count one. Having found the defendant guilty of murder as charged in the indictment, we, the jury, further find that a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, was used or exhibited during the commission of the offense. Is that the verdict of your jury?
Yes, sir.
Verdict of the jury, count two. We, the jury, find the defendant Kody Austin Lott guilty of the offense of aggravated assault as alleged in the indictment. Is that the verdict of your jury?
Yes, sir.
And then finally, verdict of the jury, deadly weapon verdict, count two. Having found the defendant guilty of aggravated assault as charged in the indictment, we, the jury, further find that a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, was used or exhibited during the commission of a felony offense. Is that also the verdict of your jury?
Yes, sir.
Is this a unanimous verdict on each of the four?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. You may be seated. Does the state care to have the jury called?
State does not.
No. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, that completes the first phase of the proceedings. I will recess you until 9 o'clock in the morning, and we will begin the punishment phase. While you're on break tonight, again, I admonish you not to discuss the case, don't formally express any punishment opinions in the case, and avoid the media reports of the case. Once again, if you'll try to be outside, back at the courthouse at 8:45 to 9, we'll start back at 9 o'clock. Counsel will be in recess until 8:30. The jury is excused with Mr. Costin. Please remain in the courtroom until the jury is over.
Thank you.
So Kody Lott was found guilty across the board. He was sentenced to life in prison for the murder and then 20 years for the aggravated assault. Your reaction to that verdict and sentence, Ashley?
I think that, it only took 18 minutes, Jesse, for the jury to deliberate and come up with these two convictions. So the verdict, I think, is just. I believe in our system. They listened to the evidence. This is the justice that they delivered in this case. And I also think it's important that he did receive two separate sentences, because both of those sentences come into play when you're looking at, under the state laws, when might he be eligible for parole.
It's interesting. We were talking about how the insanity defense, sometimes people think it's very easy to show that. If you have a guy who's speaking to the devil, oh, of course, insanity defense. It doesn't work that way, does it?
No, it absolutely doesn't, because you have to think about their state of mind at the time. And remember, Jesse, especially given defendants can see so much going on in trials thanks to Law&Crime, and that's a good thing. Sometimes people think, well, if I commit a crime and I just act this way and say these things, certainly I'm not going to be found guilty. That's not the way our justice system works.
You had mentioned it before. How do we prevent these things from happening? I mean, this was a freak situation where this guy became seemingly obsessed with this young girl and took action against her and her friend, but it was, almost outside of a school. They were walking home. I mean, literally, how do you prevent this? We talked a little bit about making stricter penalties for killing someone under 15 years old. That's Lauren's law, what they're hoping to pass. What are other ways that you see we might prevent this from happening?
Well, I think two ways. The first primary way is, I promise you, when you see defendants like this, there have been behaviors or instances in the past where people would say, wow, this is of concern. This isn't someone who's in their right mind. Anybody who sees anything, knows anything, needs to report it and or get help for that person. That's number one. Number two, not to toot our own horn, but Law&Crime helps with prevention in this sense. This allows the public to see trials, to understand our justice system, and people who are thinking of crimes or want to know what happens if I commit a crime. Here you see it. This man will spend a minimum of 30 years in jail if he gets out on parole, a minimum, and that should be a deterrent.
Well said, Ashley. And you're talking about the trials that we covered here on Law and Crime. What a year it's been. But now we want to preview what's going to be happening in 2019. So here are the most anticipated trials to be coming up in the next year. Take a look.
I'm Anthony Velez, and here are the top upcoming trials of 2019. The quadruple homicide trial of Charles Chase Merritt, the man accused of fatally beating a business associate, his wife, and their 2 preschool children, is set to begin on January 7th, 2019. The 61-year-old suspect is facing charges in connection to the disappearance of business associate Joseph McStay, his wife, Summer, and their young sons, 4-year-old Gianni and 3-year-old Joey Jr., from their home in Fallbrook in 2010. The family's remains were discovered in the Mojave Desert in 2013, and Merritt was arrested in 2014. Merritt represented himself for a short period, but later sought legal assistance. Merritt now faces the death penalty if convicted. The trial of the retired Tampa police captain who claims he fatally shot another man in self-defense during a dispute at a movie theater is scheduled to begin on February 25, 2019. 75-year-old Curtis Reeves reportedly fatally shot Chad Olson inside the Cobb Grove 16 after the 2 men argued over Olson's use of a cell phone during previews. Olson allegedly approached Reeves and threw a bag of popcorn at him before Reeves drew his gun and fatally shot Olson. Reeves tried to claim a stand your ground defense, but a judge rejected the defense argument, and that decision was upheld on appeal. His defense team will reportedly argue self-defense at trial. Reeves is now facing a second-degree murder charge. The trial of the Georgia man accused of killing an 11th grade history teacher in Ocilla is set to begin in April 2019. The defendant, Ryan Duke, was arrested in 2017 in connection with Tara Grinstead's 2005 disappearance and death. Duke and another man, Bo Dukes, reportedly told friends at a party a month after Grinstead's disappearance that they killed Grinstead and burned her body. Duke now faces multiple charges, including felony murder. Bo Dukes faces charges of concealing a death, tampering with evidence, and hindering the apprehension or punishment of a criminal. A man accused of killing his pregnant ex-girlfriend and a police officer who tried to arrest him in Florida will stand trial in May. Markeith Lloyd is accused of fatally shooting his ex-girlfriend, Sade Dixon, on December 10, 2016, before shooting Orlando Police Lieutenant Deborah Clayton when she tried to arrest him in January 2017. Lloyd reportedly lost the use of one of his eyes while being apprehended by authorities, claiming he suffered an unprovoked police attack. Lloyd now faces the death penalty. The trial of Pan Hupp, the woman accused of killing a mentally disabled man in Missouri to cover up another murder in 2011, is set to begin in June. Prosecutors claim Hupp fatally shot 33-year-old Louis Gumpenberger to divert attention for the murder of Betsy Faria, whose husband, Russ Faria, she framed for the killing in 2011. Hupp was the star witness in Faria's first murder trial, resulting in a guilty verdict. Faria was later acquitted during a second trial. Hupp now faces a charge of first-degree murder for Gumpenberger's killing. The 2 suspects, accused of killing a Florida State law professor in a murder-for-hire plot in 2014, will face a jury in June 2019. The suspects, Sigfredo Garcia and Catherine Magbanua, reportedly hired a hitman, Luis Rivera, who allegedly drove from Miami to Tallahassee and fatally shot Dan Markle. Rivera took a plea deal to a lesser charge of second-degree murder in exchange for his testimony against Garcia and Magbanua. Investigators believe the suspects were hired by Markle's ex-wife's family to kill Markle over a custody dispute, but no family members have been charged. The suspects now face charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation of murder. The ex-wife of NBA star Lorenzo Wright is set to stand trial for his murder in November 2019. Shira Wright and her cousin, Billy Turner, are accused of conspiring to kill Wright in 2010 when Wright's body was found with multiple gunshot wounds in Tennessee. The pair allegedly had a co-conspirator, Wright's cousin, convicted killer Jimmy Martin, who allegedly assisted with the cleanup of the crime scene. Martin turned state's witness, leading investigators to the murder weapon, which was tossed in a lake in Walnut, Michigan. Wright now faces a charge of first-degree murder, but won't face the death penalty if convicted. I'm Anthony Velez for Law and Crime, and those were the top upcoming trials of 2019.
Thanks, Anthony. And wow, what to expect in 2019. Ashley, which of those trials were you looking at and saying, wow, I can't wait to cover that one?
So let me tell you, the one that I know about and have been following is the Georgia case with the teacher who was killed. And
Tara Grinstead, yeah.
And Ryan Duke, yep, absolutely. And one of the reasons is because I like that they told somebody at a party. Thank God they did, or it could still be a cold case for many years. So that one's, I'm really excited to cover that one.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be noted that the McStay family murder one, we're sending our very own executive trial producer, Kathy Russin, to that California courtroom. She's going to be reporting back to us live from there. I'm really interested in the Curtis Reeves self-defense one, Ashley.
Well, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that. And you feel bad. That's the thing about that particular defendant. You look at him, Jesse, and it's like your granddad. It's like, wow, I feel bad for him. You know, maybe it is self-defense.
Is it maybe shooting somebody in a movie theater? We're already sparking the debate. It's not even 2019 yet. So, Ashley, I want you to stand by. I'm going to be signing off, but Yosha Gunasekera is going to be signing in, and she's going to guide you through the next trial that we're covering here, and that is, of course, the retrial of Quentin Tellis, the man accused of savagely killing Jessica Chambers by burning her alive. So stay tuned here on Law and Crime. We have a lot more to cover. We'll be back in a minute.